Boxing truth here. I know I'm late, but I just feel like talking about the situation. And it's about a British rising prospect named Anthony Yarde, a kid that's getting a little hype. He's displaying some knockout power, having some good performances, but against absolutely complete nobodies. He's knocked out a bunch of cab drivers, baggage handlers, guys that I'm sure they picked up on the corner street, gave a fake record like Don King used to do in the old days for his upcoming prospects. And right now, Anthony Yarde is being protected by his promoter, Frank Warren. Turned down a lucrative payday, 100,000 pounds, at least according to Eddie Hearn, for an eliminator bout that was ordered for a chance at an eventual shot against the British light heavyweight champion Frank Buglioni, against Hosea Burton, one of Eddie Hearn's fighters, Matchroom promoted, and what would have been a really good, solid step up for Anthony Yarde. I mean, he would have actually fought somebody that would have punched back, a guy that would have provided a little resistance, a guy that would have provided some answers on if this deserved hype of Anthony Yarde should he be getting this type of hype considering the opponents he's fought. You have to criticize the level of opposition. He's fought a bunch of heavy bags. The last guy he fought, somehow earned a one of those regional straps, whatever you want to call them, those lighter minor titles that get you rated. But the thing is, that guy couldn't even knock out dudes that were knocked out multiple times in his career, 10, 12 times in his career. He was going the distance with them. The last opponent Anthony Yarde knocked out. And in the fight, the guy didn't even throw one punch at Anthony Yarde. So it was pretty much a heavy bag session for Yarde. I'll say Yarde. That's how I pronounce his name. It was a heavy bag session, his last fight. He's mostly had heavy bag sessions. Very poor opposition thus far. Not really going to learn anything from these type of opponents. Doesn't really do him any good besides give him a false sense of confidence. And Hosea Burton would at least punch back. He would have fought hard. He would have tried to win, which is what would have made it a real fight for Anthony Yarde. But Yarde is being protected by Frank Warren because Frank Warren is not really sure how good he is. How can you know how this type of guy this type of fighter, how can you know how good he is considering the amateur background he has? Very limited. Only 12 amateur fights, I believe. So Frank Warren has to be careful. He has to develop him very slowly because it's very difficult to gauge how good this guy is because of the very limited amateur background. He's got some good athleticism, some speed, but I'm still not really sure on his skill set. I mean, he hasn't fought guys that punch back, so how can you tell? You got to show me that you can slip a jab. Then maybe I could gauge a little bit how good you are. But he had his opportunity to fight an eliminator against Hosea Burton and turned it down. Of course, his team told it to turn it down. And he went in direction to fight Ryan Ford for a vacant intercontinental title within the WBO, which will get Yarde even a higher ranking within the WBO. But this Ryan Ford guy, yeah, he's undefeated, but he's not as tough of an opponent as Burton or Buglioni. Even though Frank Warren says Burton's a step back, he's not. He would have been a step in the right direction, a step forward. A guy that would have provided some resistance. A guy that's actually been in real fights. A guy that showed his worth against Buglioni when he went 12 hard rounds. It was eventually stopped in the 12th. Buglioni was just too experienced for Burton that night. Burton didn't face as good as opposition as Buglioni, and Buglioni's experience, because of his experience, he was able to prevail that night. But he fought a good fight. Burton did. Showed his showed his toughness, showed that he tried to win, and he won a few rounds in that fight. He didn't lay down. He put up a hard-fought battle. So he's only going to get more seasoned from that type of fight, and he really would have provided Yarde a stiff test. He's a long guy, very tall. Would have been a very interesting matchup. For 100,000 pounds, would have been worth the risk. Would have been a chance to eventually fight Buglioni, but I'm not sure Frank Warren believes Yarde is even ready for this type of fight, or even ready to eventually challenge a Buglioni. Honestly, I would pick Buglioni right now to beat Yarde, because Yarde just needs a little more seasoning. And this Ford guy is just, he's somewhat of a step up, to be honest, because that's how poor Yarde's opposition has been. But he's very slow. Not very athletic. Very slow speed. Doesn't throw many punches. He just ain't that good. And he's not even rated by WBO. So I really don't see how this is a step forward for Yarde, only in the sense that this is actually probably the best opponent Yarde has fought. And he's most likely going to be doing it for much less compared to the pay that he would have gotten against Hosea Burton. But right now, Yarde is being protected. He's getting a false rating within the WBO, beating the type of guy that he fought for that number 8 ranking that he got within the WBO. I'm pretty sure when the next month ratings come out, Ryan Ford's name will magically appear within the ratings, because he's not in there right now. And he hasn't beaten anybody that would warrant a world rating for a sanctioning body. But I'm pretty sure his name will magically appear whenever the ratings of this month come out, which is very soon, I believe. But it is what it is. Yarde turned down a real fight, and he'll be participating in a much easier test, but a little step up compared to what he's been fighting. An undefeated guy with limited experience, very slow, doesn't throw many punches, but a favorable matchup for Yarde compared to a matchup with Burton, which would have been a tougher fight, a fight that would have provided more answers. But right now, Yarde's looking like a ducker. But right now, he's just a protected fighter, like many fighters in boxing. Just part of the game. Frank Warren's going to take his time with Anthony Yarde, position him to a world title shot on his terms. Let's just hope for the Yarde fans he gets the seasoning that he needs, and eventually, when he gets that title shot, he'll be ready. Doesn't go in there with a false sense of confidence. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.